Good evening. Today we are going to discuss the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the larynx. The larynx is located where your vocal folds are, and there are multiple muscles that move in different ways and attach to different structures to get your vocal folds to move the way they need to produce phonation or production of sound. So the intrinsic muscles of the larynx have 2 points of attachment. Both points of attachment of the muscle are located within the larynx. The extrinsic muscles have 1 point of attachment within the larynx and 1 point of attachment outside of the larynx. Within the intrinsic muscles, there are 11 total. There are 3 adductors, 1 abductor, 2 glottal tensors, 1 relaxer, and 4 axillary musculature, which we will skip over for today. For the intrinsic muscles within the adductors, which are in charge of closing the vocal folds in order to create vibration for phonation, there are the lateral cricoarytenoid muscle, the transverse arytenoid muscle, and the oblique arytenoid muscle. Within the abductor category of the intrinsic muscles, these are responsible for opening the vocal folds in order to allow breath to pass through. There is the posterior cricoarytenoid muscle. Within the category of glottal tensors used to tense the vocal folds, there's the cricothyroid muscle and the thyrovocalis. Finally, the last category we will discuss tonight for the intrinsic muscles is the relaxer, which is the thyromuscularis muscle. In addition to the intrinsic muscles, there's the extrinsic muscles. There are 11 of those as well. There are only 2 subcategories of the extrinsic muscles, and I'll remind you that extrinsic muscles have 1 point of attachment within the larynx and 1 point of attachment outside of the larynx. Under the 2 categories of extrinsic muscles, we have the hyoid and laryngeal elevators and the hyoid and laryngeal depressors. So basically, what you might determine from those definitions is that the hyoid laryngeal elevators help to elevate the entire structure, lifting it upwards, and the depressors bring it down. So within the hyoid laryngeal elevators, there are 8 total, and within the hyoid laryngeal depressors, there are 4 total. So I will now list the laryngeal elevators. There is the digastricus anterior and posterior portion, the stylohyoid, the mylohyoid, geniohyoid, hyoglossus, genioglossus, and thyropharyngeus. Within the hyoid and laryngeal depressors, there is the sternothyroid, the omohyoid, the sternohyoid, and the thyrohyoid. We have now discussed all the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles minus the auxiliary musculature intrinsic muscles of the larynx. So I hope you've learned a little something today about the larynx and the different structures that help us create sounds to communicate with one another.